Oh, there you go. I can't hear you. No.
Now you should be able to hear me.
Yes.
Now we're back. Welcome back to Top Bids. Technical delay edition. Doing it from home this go round, bringing you all the transfer news from England, Italy. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how you doing tonight?
I'm all right.
You're okay.
I'm waiting for some Milan transfer news, but all we're getting is delays on the contract extensions for people in the front office and a new jersey that's been released, the home jersey. So that's basically all I've been doing with regards to footy news recently.
Right. So we are in the throes of transfer news saga now, and on tonight's show, we wanted to go through. I wanted to pick some teams that I think. Listen, the transfer window is important for every team. That's like a clear and obvious thing that doesn't really need to be said. But I think there are some teams that perhaps this transfer window is a little more important because they're either at an inflection point where they can either really improve or need to really improve, or had such a bad season that there needs to be some change, some shakeup in what they're doing. So we're gonna go through some of these teams. We're not gonna be like doing the thing where we pick the exact players that they need, but I think it's just worth discussing some of them and areas that they can maybe shake up their team and what we're looking forward to them in the future and why maybe this is the summer now that they really need to kick on from. We're going to start in England with Leicester City. Obviously, had a really disappointing season. I think really part of that was injury driven for sure. They never really at any point had their first choice 11 for most of the year. And Fofana gets injured in the summer in a friendly, and then that obviously I think really messes up their plans. We know defensively they were not great. Especially from set pieces they were not great. So it's going to be a big question mark on how they improve there. So this is a big summer for them because I think Brendan Rodgers, while his job is safe, I don't think he's someone that's going to be necessarily in danger of losing it. When you consider that they had two kind of disappointing years where they should have finished in the Champions League places, they end up finishing fifth in both, but they do win the FA Cup. That's good progress for Leicester and where they're at. But makes it to the Conference League semifinals this past season. Now I think they're at a point where you're also seeing a little bit of transition. Tielemans is probably gone this summer. It certainly seems like, at least. Jamie Vardy, this last year, he was still effective, but I would imagine the next two seasons that's a player that's really you're not counting on anymore. Defensively, I think they definitely need a new signing. The midfield, you could almost see at least two midfield signings going into next season. They've been linked a lot with Sangare. Nathan Collins in defense is someone that they've looked at. So what are we thinking of Leicester going forward?
What I see with them is a lot of their talents being targeted by other teams, and they're going to need to, reload. There's been a quick Google search of transfer rumors for Leicester City just shows more outgoing players than ingoing players. You see a lot of stuff about Wesley Fofana. You see a lot of stuff about Yuri Tielemans, which you said earlier. Chowdhury is another guy. Allegedly, championship clubs are eyeing him up. So there's quite a few different things here. There's this rumor going on between Leicester City battling Milan for De Ketelaere. They're linked with Benrahma. If they're going to make some signings, they're obviously going to have to sell some players. Maybe a guy like Tielemans will get sold. Maybe a guy like Fofana will get sold. Or, maybe they hold on to Fofana, sell Soyuncu, and kind of reload somewhere. I haven't really watched the Prem like that, so I don't know the glaring needs for them, within their style of play. But like you said, it's Brendan Rodgers at the helm, so I would say focus on solidifying a defense before going attack, but who knows if Brendan Rodgers will actually do that.
Right, yeah. Fofana, I can't imagine being sold. I think he's very much a part of their future. Tielemans, he
Yeah.
only has a year left on his deal, and it's felt like all season. Uh, some of his performances too. If you talk to a lot of Leicester fans, they've said that he hasn't been quite as impressive this past season, and part of that might just be due to the fact that you know he's kind of on his way out, and I don't know how much motivation he had. I think especially the last two seasons, probably a little bit disappointing, just in the way that they ended. I know the seasons overall were good, but yeah, I think his eyes are somewhere else. And, you still have James Madison, incredibly talented midfielder. And, he's going to have a good rest because he didn't get any England duty for this international break. And he's obviously has a point to prove to try and make the England squad for the World Cup. But he's obviously a huge talent. Harvey Barnes, huge talent. You had Dewsbury Hall come up this season and showed some at least impressive form. And, that's a player that you can just count on in the midfield going forward. So they do have some things. I know they're looking at Lookman. We'll see. You'll see how that progresses. But yeah, I think midfield and defense is really where this team has to improve. I love Patson Daka. He's just a hashtag my guy. So I'm happy with him at Leicester. I think he actually showed a little bit more this season, and I think I lamented at some point this year that I'd really like to see Rodgers trust him a bit more and give him more showing. And I think we've seen that. And I think him and Iheanacho can form a pretty good partnership. But yeah, I think even Kasper Schmeichel, he's not exactly young. You have to be thinking in the next 2 or 3 seasons potentially replacing him. It's tough to say, of course, but I think they're in a weird spot, and I think this past season was a step backwards for them. And I'm curious to see now with Newcastle with a lot of money, right, and some of these other teams, like Arsenal and Spurs making bigger, more ambitious moves. A little more solidified in the fact that they're really gunning for those top 6 places. That Leicester maybe just fell behind at just a really inopportune moment. They didn't really take that leap when it really, really would have been good for them. So it's a crucial summer for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with their transfer business. Nothing much yet, but I'm sure that'll change. The other
What do you
team,
think of?
that we're going to talk
My
about.
bad. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just saw this. Do you think that they shell out money for a guy like Ibrahim Sangare?
Yeah, that's the name they've been linked with, midfielder from the Eredivisie, and he's been linked to a lot of teams. I think even Liverpool have gotten links with him. He would fit the profile for them too, because he's more of that defensive-minded midfield player, which is certainly something they need more of. They really only have Ndidi in that spot. They haven't been impressed by a lot of the other signings that they've had. But yeah, Sangare's a really good player. I like him. I think he's certainly someone that needs to be developed a bit more, but that's exactly what Leicester would be looking to do. They're not a team that needs immediate, top level Champions League quality players. They have the ability to be patient a bit. So Sangare, I think, would be a good signing for them. I'm curious to see where he ends up, because it does seem like he's probably leaving this summer. But a team that's had some big moves already in the transfer market, but doesn't change the fact that I think it is huge for them, is Arsenal. We had our fun little bet about who would finish higher between Spurs and Arsenal. That ended up going in my favor when I picked Spurs. But Arsenal have already signed Fabio Vieira. They've made a few other signings already this summer. They're in the talks with Gabriel Jesus, which would be big for them. Apparently, they're in for Rafinha. I'll kind of believe that when I see it, if I'm being honest, just because I think that's a really ambitious move for them. But we know where they need to improve, right? We know that they definitely need better attackers. Jesus would certainly be an upgrade on their striking partnerships, and they've not really had that reliable goal scorer ever since Aubameyang moved on, and Lacazette is gone this summer, and he hasn't been he was never really the most reliable goal scorer for them to begin with. So Arsenal, it's a huge summer for them. Arteta, this is where you really move forward in your project, and I think it's a make or break year for them, because this past year, definitely an improvement on where they were. But when you consider the fact that they really could have finished top 4 if they had just a little bit over the edge and probably just a little bit more quality within the squad. So getting that quality this summer, I think, is crucial, and you can see that they're certainly ambitious to do that.
Sorry for lagging out, I guess, not that long ago. But some of the names that I'm interested in seeing Arsenal kind of pursue right now, I'm looking at the Sky rumors, and I read a little bit about this morning. Rafinha turning down Barcelona instead of waiting for Leeds to make a deal with them. And he's linked very heavily with making a move to Arsenal now. Another man who may be on the outs from Manchester City with this total overhaul that looks like they're doing is Gabriel Jesus, who's also been linked. I was reading stuff last night about that, heading out to Arsenal, which would be nice for them. I know that their contract extension talks with Saka have kind of come to like a pause, and they've been not as easygoing as they were in the beginning. So maybe a replacement over on the right that can also play up front is kind of budding for them. And I'm interested to see that, Arsenal's always looking to get new center backs. They're linked with Lisandro Martinez from Ajax, the Mexican center back, who can also play a central defensive midfield position, which I think could be interesting for Arsenal's depth, moving forward next season.
Yeah, Lisandro Martinez, they've been linked with a lot. He's obviously been linked to Manchester United too, being the Ajax connection, of course. But yeah, he's a little bit versatile too. He can play, a few different positions in the defense, which would obviously be big for Arsenal. This year's important for them. They've already got Vieira, who's a really, really good-looking midfielder. I like the signing there, but they do need that depth. They do need that quality as well. I think the reason that they didn't finish in that top four is because they lacked those really top options. And part of that is because they're such a young squad. They're one of the youngest in the Premier League. And now they're going to have the added test of having Europa League on top of this. That extra fixture on Thursday really gives teams a lot of issues. And that's going to be the first time Arteta's really going to have to deal with that. So I'm curious to see how that goes. I think, Saka, I think they'd be crazy to let him walk, but it might obviously not be totally within their choice. I don't know that Rafinha is a replacement for him. I think they're looking to have some versatility amongst the front three. Even someone like Jesus, he can certainly play the number 9, but we've seen him for City play out on the wing. We know Martinelli can switch from the wing to inside, and Saka's pretty versatile as well, and where he can play. So I think they're looking to just have a front three that's kind of interchangeable, which I think makes a lot of sense. And it's the same with the midfield too. I think Vieira is someone that can switch positions within the midfield. He's definitely a bit more of a kind of a 10, but he's been able to play a solid just like right center mid role. And he has just a fantastic passing ability. That's the thing that really leaps off when you watch Vieira play. I'm very, very fascinated to see how he gets on in the Premier League next season. Looking forward to that. We'll stay in London. We'll stay in North London even and talk about Spurs. These two, I think, have been, outside of City, probably the most ambitious. City and Liverpool, these two have been the most ambitious in the Premier League so far in terms of quality of signings and price paid. They signed Bissouma, right? That's a big signing, and they're looking to get rid of Bergwijn and perhaps bring in someone like Antony. They've been linked to Richarlison. They're heavily linked to Jed Spence from Middlesbrough, who was on loan to Nottingham Forest last year. Like they're making a lot of headway here, and I think they clearly have a plan. They clearly have the plan to back Conte as well, which is huge. Bissouma's a good signing. He's a good midfield signing, and I think he'll be a good player for them. And they got him at a pretty good deal, which I think is nice. It's always an added bonus. Spurs have the quality, right? We know that they have Son and Kane up top. That's such a dangerous duo to have. Christian Romero, when he got going last season, when he wasn't dealing with injury, we saw that in the second half of the year. He was really fantastic. Even someone like Eric Dyer, fantastic. They really are just needing that I think third center back to push them over, and they'll be in a really, really good spot. We saw Kulusevski, improved and really came on strong in the second half of the season after securing that loan move there, which is obviously going to be made permanent at a point. But I think another like creative midfield player perhaps. They've been linked with Christian Eriksen, but I always found that strange because him and Conte wasn't a perfect fit at Inter, and apparently his demands too are a bit extreme in terms of the money that he wants and bonuses and things like that. But so it doesn't seem like Eriksen's going to have the reunion there. But it's a huge summer for Spurs, and it's a huge summer for Arsenal, and both of them, Spurs especially returning to the Champions League, that was obviously a huge target for them. If you would have asked anyone in October, if they would have been sitting in the 4th spot, I don't know that anyone really would have said that, and they did. And it's a huge milestone for them too. Like it's a huge marker to be back in that competition, and you add in all the money that you get from that. They had £150 million injection of cash, for this summer to help improve the squad and other things. So it's a huge summer for them. Can't be understated.
One of the scariest things as a fan of a different team that's not named Tottenham uh, is to see Antonio Conte being backed by the owners with a war chest of money that can be used for transfers to go out and get the players that he wants. And whatever club he is at, it always goes this way. He always convinces the owners, look, if you want me here managing your club and you want to win, then you better go out and get me the players that I want. And it just always seems that they do it. And he always finds a way of finding the right players. I know that Tottenham have been linked heavily with a lot of Inter players, especially with all of these rumors where it looks pretty likely that Inter will buy Lukaku, especially since they also have signed Dybala. Basically, that's pretty much done. So Inter's looking to most likely sell some players. One of the big rumors that's come out recently is that Tottenham's looking to sign Lautaro Martinez, even though Martinez has been linked with every friggin' Premier League club. I don't see that happening. If they're going to sell players for money, I'd see them sell guys like Brozovic and Bastoni before they sell Lautaro Martinez and give up the possibility of having a trident of amazing attacking talent. So I as a Tottenham fan, I probably wouldn't get too excited about the Lautaro rumors. But I mean, yeah, this like you said, it's a very, very serious summer for them. They're going to be linked with everybody. I mean, just looking real quick, I mean, Gabi Jesus' name is popping up. He's going to be popping up everywhere in the Prem.
The Jesus link is strange to me because it just doesn't make much sense. It feels like it's just a throw in because Arsenal are in for him, and they know that drives the numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say he's like one of those guys that's probably just going to be thrown in with every team. Like, oh yeah, this is a pretty top talent that could be coming to a team that needs a forward. Gareth Bale is rumored. I mean, Rafinha, Richarlison. You're just seeing names that are just all the same. Going to be dropped with every single team. Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, and then I'm seeing a lot of Inter links, which I mean I could understand. Antonio Conte won the league with them, and
right. They've already signed Perisic.
Yeah.
They've already signed Perisic, so they already have that one interconnection. I just think, they've made some good signings already. I don't know how much more they have to do, really. I think Perisic and right now, getting another center back and perhaps someone like Jed Spence would be enough. And then you add in Basuma, you've got that extra midfielder, that little bit of extra quality. I think it can go into next season with Son, Kane, Kulusevski, and Lucas Moura to rotate in some of those areas and probably be okay. If they spend the big money and go get someone like Richarlison to spell that front three at times, that could be huge because he's another versatile player that can play a few different positions up top. So that would be a good signing for them. But
Emerson's also linked to be making a move out to Spain. Who would play on the right then for them? Do you think they go and get somebody, or do you think that they?
Well, that's why they're trying to sign Jed Spence from Middlesbrough, the right back who was on loan this past season in Nottingham Forest. Really impressed a lot of people. And every time I watched Nottingham Forest, which ended up being a few times this year because I watched them a lot in the FA Cup because they played obviously that great game against Arsenal, then they played against Liverpool, watched them all through the championship playoffs. Like every time that I've watched him this year, he's impressed me. He's been one of the key drivers of that team, and very much just like your modern fullback, great at getting forward, and I think would very much fit. When you think about some of the weaknesses of Spurs last season, that right back position was tough. Wasn't really until Doherty got into a little bit of form in the spring, and then of course he has kind of the season-ending injury. But Emerson was just not good enough in the final third, especially with the way Conte wants to play. To I think warrant getting more time, more minutes. So an upgrade there I think would be huge for them, and Jed Spence I think can make that leap for sure. And I'm curious to see which way they go. I still think they're a big it's tough, right? Because Spurs are I think on the second half of the season were the third best team in the league. I think they were better than Chelsea were, from like January on. But I don't see them being in just one transfer window back to the level of Liverpool and Manchester City. That's a big ask, and we know this, and I know that it's cliche. I know maybe it's a little overplayed, but Conte has historically not done well with European competition. If you look at his best seasons, they've always been with either no Europe or out of Europe in the group stages. And until that changes, it's going to be something to watch for. So that's something I'm keeping my eye on this season too, is that he has just historically not been a manager that has handled that dual role very well so far. But we'll see what happens this season.
Yeah, they need they.
We'll move on to Everton.
Sorry, in my opinion, they need to get that right wing back kind of deal sorted, and they need to get that kind of left outside center back that can link up with Perisic and be real dangerous. A kind of like ball playing center back that can push forward, kind of in that Bastoni-esque role, because like we talked about this last week. Bastoni most likely isn't going to be sold, and if that's the case, they need to find a very specific center back to fill that role.
Yeah, they've been linked with Skriniar too, who is a similar type of center back to Bastoni, but we'll see how that carries on. Let's move on to Everton, who had a really disappointing year, especially by their standards, nearly relegated, and now I think a huge wave of relief floods over them. And now as you get into the transfer window, you're kind of dealt with the reality yet again as an Everton fan that there's a lot of work to be done with this squad, and you're not just out of the woods just because you didn't get relegated this season. I would still say the threat of relegation is not quite as dangerous, right? But because I think there are some bad teams again in the Premier League that could be going straight back down. But you think about the fact you might lose Richarlison this summer, Dominic Calvert-Lewin maybe, although I think they would be unwise to sell them both, but may not have a total choice in that, right? It's still a squad that is not amazing by any stretch. There's really not a lot of quality within this team. You look at some of the players that played the most minutes for them last year. They're not the most inspiring group, especially if you do lose Richarlison, who was one of the very few goal scorers that they had last season, with the very few offensive threats that they had. Part of that was because Calvert-Lewin was dealing with injury a lot, but it's still a squad that I think needs a lot of work. And that's an amazing thing to say after the money that they've spent on this team over the last few years. It's part of the reason that they're in the position that they're in. I think that what's tough for Everton is that they still have FFP issues, so they're limited in what exactly they can spend. And, there's a potential takeover happening there too. So there could be a change in ownership, which could even further complicate things. And yeah, if you lose a key player like Richarlison, that could be a huge, huge detriment to them. And, you look at who they're linked with and what they need, it's not really lining up in the way that you want. And Frank Lampard, I know he saved them from relegation, but I'm not totally convinced that he's a great manager. I think this could be a really challenging year for him and for Everton, but it's going to start with this transfer window and it's funny because this is a team that so often in the last few years has come into August thinking that they've won the transfer window, that they've done amazing business, and now it's led to this point where it's all caught up to them now, where they have not spent well, they have not made the right signings, they've overspent in some places, and they can't clear a lot of these players out either. So this is the summer I think that they need to start transitioning forward, and it doesn't mean that you have to go out and spend a ton of money, of course, and they may not even be able to. But I think you need to make smart signings. I think even what they did last summer was pretty smart. You have Damari Gray, he's not Champions League level player, right? But
not
for
a
under
world
£2
beater.
million, for under £2 million, they got him last summer. Those are the types of signings you need to be looking for. I think that's where Everton need to be lying, and they have this tendency, I think, to overshoot and try and get these big deals. Even Richarlison, right? They bought for tons of money, so now when you're looking to sell him, you want to be making some kind of profit. It's hard to when you spent the money that you did on Richarlison, a few seasons ago. So. That's the challenge for Everton, I think, is just is that transition forward.
Yeah, the rumor and what's basically being said is that Frank Lampard would rather sell Richarlison than DCL. So Calvert-Lewin would be staying as probably their main striker. Some of the rumors, like you said, they don't have to go and sign a lot of players. They don't have to sign a lot of world beaters. One of the multiple rumors that's being made is they're looking to sign Zinchenko from City. City has been linked with signing some new fullbacks. So maybe Zinchenko's on his way out. Maybe they could bring him in. Mateus Nunes, who is a young midfielder, young talent from Sporting. They have Harry Winks, and the big name signing, and I use that in quotes, Lucas Moura. But I doubt that they're going to splash enough money to be able to do that, especially with the role that Lucas has with Tottenham right now and the need that they have for somebody to play on the right. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I think all of those are like typical Everton types of signings, like especially the castaways from like some of the bigger clubs. That's what's gotten them in this position. Fabian Delph, not an inspiring signing, right?
What a signing.
Yerry Mina, a player that can't stay healthy and just hasn't been good enough for them. Even someone like Michael Keane, who wasn't even from like one of the bigger teams, but was this like touted player. They've just not gotten it right, and I don't know. I think it's a little bit of recruitment. I think it's definitely a little bit of coaching. I think recruitment can be blamed for signing Alex Iwobi for $30 million, right? Like they've just made poor decisions, and this is the summer that needs to change, and maybe it will. Maybe these last few months were a real wake up call for them because they were very close to what would have been really ruinous relegation. Relegation isn't good for everyone, but I think it would have been really, really tough for Everton to be in that situation. So perhaps the wake up the call they needed, but this is a big summer for them, no doubt about it. We're going to move to Italy now with some teams that I think really have to make a really good summer. Starting with Juventus, because again, you talk about just a transition period. I think that's what a lot of this season was for Juventus. They buy Vlahovic. Chiesa gets injured. I think that gets forgotten a lot when we talk about Juventus this season, and that he was one of their best attackers, one of the best attackers in SerieA. We saw what a great Euros he had. One of the best performers there in a team that won the European Championship. So Chiesa, should hopefully be back for the bulk of next season. Haven't seen the total timeline on his injury and recovery yet, but Juventus, they lose Chiellini. From a leadership perspective, definitely a bit damaging, but from the actual, minutes played, not the worst. He was sort of a squad player at this point. But Bonucci's not getting any younger. That you're going to have to move on from him. Left back is an issue. Alexandro might be gone. But they have been linked heavily to Filip Kostic, who I think is a fantastic player coming from Frankfurt. He would fit the exact type of way that they want. Just a great left-sided player, and I think would be a great signing for Juventus should they get him. Been linked heavily with Paul Pogba. I have not caught up with the Pontari to see whether or not he's declaring to be out to Juventus just yet, but it does seem like that's going to happen. They might lose Rabiot. There's a lot of change-up within this team this season, and I think this is where this summer is important because you're laying kind of the foundation for what you hope is the next generation for Juventus. I don't love the Pogba signing, and even though Kostic is good, he's an older player. He's in his prime now, which is fine because Juventus probably assumes that they're Champions League team, and they certainly can at least have some conversation about being back in the title potentially. But I think it's still kind of not the direction I'd like to see, and Allegri is worrying me a little bit. With some of his decisions over this season. I've been someone that's been a bit more defensive about him, but you can't understate that it's a big summer for Juventus and where they go from here because they want to be back to winning 8-9 titles in a row, but I don't know that that's going to be on the cards for them.
Yeah, especially when Demiral seems to be the replacement signing for Chiellini.
Well, Demiral's gone. He's officially at Atalanta.
Oh, it is official because I was seeing the thing saying that Atalanta exercised the option to buy Demiral outright. Okay, yeah, I was seeing the one saying that Atalanta won't take up the buy option, but I missed that one. So never mind. Juventus is doing signings like extending Nicolo Fagioli's contract through 2026. Now, Juventus is not one that normally is known to have young talent, especially Italian talent. So for the Italian Juventus fans, that's like good news. The negative thing is Allegri's the coach, and this kid will never get a chance with the senior team. He'll probably be loaned out to Serie C. So Nicholas Beans, I mean, have fun, playing for Monza, in Serie C. But yeah, it seems like the Angel Di Maria stuff is kind of falling through as well. I heard that, the Juventus is kind of getting shafted by Di Maria, which is kind of funny. I think that's hilarious. But they've also been linked with like a David Neres in the case that the Di Maria stuff doesn't work.
David Neres was unveiled today as a Benfica player.
Really? Okay, that's an interesting signing there. The rumors of Nahuel Molina, but that guy's going to be looked at by every SerieA team. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Allegri does with Juventus. But what I'm seeing from a lot of the rumors is that like Juventus doesn't have the same, transfer power hold that they've had for like the last 10 years. Everybody was linked with Juventus. If a top player was coming to Italy, they were going to Juventus. I mean, hell, they signed Ronaldo. You know what I'm saying? Like Juventus was this team. If you wanted to win a league and you wanted to go play in a league where it's a lot more tactical, you don't have to do too much because you're going to be rotated in the squad and you're going to win the league easily. You go to SerieA, you sign with Juventus, but it's not looking like that anymore. There's a lot more parity in the league. There's like 3, 4, 5 other teams that are competitive in this league now, and Juventus is losing that grip they've had on the league, and as a Milan fan, I love that. But if you're a neutral, it's also good. But if you love the old lady, that's not looking good for you guys. I mean, I could see Juventus being a team that like is struggling come the end of the transfer window, and they make like some last minute signing to save the transfer window and signing a guy like maybe Zaniolo, but I doubt Roma would sell, such a young talent, even though he's had 2 ACL surgeries, to a direct rival. But who knows? That would be such a Juventus signing, and then I couldn't wait to see the 2 young Italians in Zaniolo and Chiesa get hurt again next season and be out the entire season. It's just bound to happen. So.
Right. So what's interesting with Juventus too is they've had quite a few players leave this summer already and certainly seem like they're going to be leaving. Morata, his loan deal, I'm not sure what's up with that. That seems really unclear. Dybala seems certainly he's definitely gone from Juventus, but it seems like Inter is his destination. We already mentioned Chiellini, Bernardeschi. So some faces that have been if not, regular starters, at least regular squad players, guys that you can at least count on, to give you good minutes throughout the year. So it is a big transition for them, and I just wonder which direction they head in. And I'll just say, Pogba, it'll get the headlines, but he's been a bit ineffectual at times. Whenever we've seen him, so curious to see that one. Let's move on to Napoli, another team that I think is in a big transition period because they fell away in the second half of this past season, had some really bad big results, and now you can see the vultures circling a bit. You've lost Insigne already. Dries Mertens, it's really unclear what's happening with him. He's out of contract and has definitely expressed interest in going back to Napoli, but there's not been clear communication there. He's been linked to Roma a lot. Victor Osimhen, of course, has been linked a ton to clubs like Arsenal and lots of Premier League teams. And, we've seen Koulibaly for, I don't know, the 4th straight summer, a transfer saga with him, potentially with Barcelona. In Fabian Ruiz apparently as well, could be sold this summer, which I think would be a mistake. But yeah, Napoli, I think are an interesting spot because, you have potentially, Lozano can fit in that front 3 somewhere. Politano potentially, if he stays, could fit in that front 3 somewhere, but I'm not sure that's the quality you're looking for a team that's going to be in the Champions League next season. Victor Osimhen certainly can. I think that midfield is good enough as it is. Defensively, I think there are areas for improvement on the fullback position. But yeah, I think Napoli are this is a huge inflection point for them because you've lost already a leader in Insigne. Koulibaly will step in as that captain at least for the time being, but I'm not sure you're going to lose someone like that this summer as well. On top of potentially Mertens, and then if you lose two of your more talented players just outright in Fabian Ruiz and Osimhen, I don't care who you buy. That's a lot of talent to lose in one
Yep.
summer. So I don't think they'll do that, mind you. I don't know that all those players are leaving. I could see maybe one of those three potentially being gone, for a big sale, but it would depend a lot on who they could potentially bring in, to make a decision like that. I think the best thing, and we said this last week, for Osimhen would be stay another year at Napoli and improve again. You'll have the Champions League, which would be a great test for you. A lot of these other clubs you're going to go to may not even be able to offer you that, so that's a good incentive there. So Napoli, though, like I said, they're aging, but almost still have these like young talents that they have like a core to build around still. And I think
Yeah.
still have the ability to be a Champions League team for this upcoming season. I could still see them finishing in that top four, but they're going to have to make good decisions this summer. They've not been a team that I have loved all the time in the transfer market. I think they've had some big swings and misses at times, but it's going to be an important one to get right this year.
Yeah, some of the main rumors floating around Napoli. You talked about Koulibaly possibly leaving, Fabian Ruiz possibly leaving. So they've been linked with a lot of defensemen and midfielders. Very doubtful ones like Kim Min Jae from I'm pretty sure he plays for Fenerbahce. And then Senesi from Feyenoord. They've also been linked with like Luis Alberto and Carlos Soler as incoming midfielders. I think one of the things that I want to keep an eye on is the potential contract talks with Mertens, because he can leave on a free. He is a free agent technically, and he's been linked to a couple clubs with a leave away from Naples, and I think that hurts the team, especially with Insigne going. I think that a guy like Mertens could step in and help out. I agree with you about Osimhen. That would be a huge mistake for Napoli to sell him. It's a huge mistake if Napoli sells Fabian Ruiz. Fabian Ruiz is the heartbeat of that team in the midfield, and if he goes, if they lose Koulibaly as well, this team is looking like they're outside of Conference League. A 7th, 8th place finish. ADL has a lot of work to do, because this is a team that's been very competitive over the last few years, and with a new coach like Spalletti, and things are looking like they're good and on the ups. This could be the worst thing that they could do, and they have to tread carefully this transfer window. They definitely do.
Yeah, it's a big one for them, for their future. We'll move on to Atalanta, who had a disappointing year, one of their lowest finishes in the Gasperini era. I think it might actually be the lowest. No Europe next year, which might be, in some ways good for them, but it's an Atalanta team that has changed so much from what we're used to, in the past few years, and the names that you've been familiar with just aren't as integral to the squad anymore. Part of their issues this year were injuries, but also, in some ways, we associate them with kind of like a young, exciting teams. A lot of the guys that were getting a lot of minutes for them this year were older players. They really didn't have too many of those like young talents that you're used to, like Paslic, Koopmeyers, Demiral, Pessina are really the only like true like young players. And even then, they're not exactly like U23s for the most part, getting tons and tons of minutes. So it's a squad that I think is an interesting spot. Ilicic, his future is kind of uncertain. Zapata, his future is uncertain within the team. And outside of that, you have some big decisions to make, I would say. They did make Demiral permanent, which I think is a good signing for them. I like Demiral a lot, but, you're still dealing with, I think, a team that has some upgrading to do for sure. And I was surprised that just how inconsistent they were this season. And again, so much of that I think was due to injuries. So much of that was due to just some shakeups. You lose Gersons and he was injured, and then you sell him in January, and they don't really have anyone on that left side that was able to produce very well. Hadbor was not able to get to his level on the right side this year, which was I think an issue for them. And is going to be a roadblock if they can't get that. But I like the Jeremy Boga signing. I think he's a good player. He's someone I like a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing him next year. Has to start scoring better though. I mean, for Christ's sake, I need that man to just start putting him in the back of the net. But they have interesting pieces already. I think I like Castorina, but there's even questions about him and his future within the team. So the crystal ball for Atalanta is very, very murky for me. And it's hard to see how they progress and move forward. But I am curious to see how they do it because they've been resilient. They've time and time again come back. But I wonder if this is just, you've lost just too much and you haven't really regained, like the talent pool that you need to be back into Europe, to be back into those Champions League places like you were. I wonder if their time in the sun has faded a little bit. I hope it hasn't because I enjoy watching Atalanta play. But I do see a very tough road for them because you look around the landscape of SerieA now and there are comfortably 6 or 7 teams that are better than them. And it's going to take a lot of work to catch up now.
I mean, I'm doing a search for Atalanta transfer rumors and there's like nothing. This is very concerning. The only thing that really pops up is all the Demiral news. There's rumors that
they've been linked with Nuno Tavares from Arsenal.
I was just about to say
interested in him.
The only other thing that I can see is that they are linked with a potential transfer for Alex Kral, the 23-year-old Czech midfielder from Spartak Moscow who was just on loan with West Ham. The only other thing that I'm seeing, like Timo Werner, I see that.
No shot, Timo Werner going to Atalanta. That's an insane rumor.
Joachim Male from Atalanta to Tottenham Hotspur. So maybe that's why Tavares has been linked with Atalanta. There's a potential right wing back leaving. Belotti is linked. I'm guessing there's still rumors with. Have you seen anything about Zapata leaving? There's been rumors since like last year of him like leaving, going to Inter or going somewhere else. Do you see anything of that nature happening?
Ending up anywhere. There was a link with him with Newcastle in January, but I think they moved past that. That felt like more just a signing to get them through. But seems like a player that's probably going to be moved on. I think would be great for Atalanta. It would be Belotti. I think he fits a similar type of mold. Now he's obviously an older player, but again, you get him on a free contract, you get him for the next 3-4 seasons, and I think helps you, as you transition forward here. That'd be something I would, as a Belotti fan and as someone that enjoys watching Atalanta, I would like that a lot. But I just think they're in a tough spot now, and they're a team too that isn't big spenders either. And they are a team that typically as well as sold in order to buy. And I just wonder what direction they move on here. And like I said, they have a really difficult path facing them.
Yeah.
But
hey, what do you know about the publication The Express? Do you know how? Do you know if they're like what's the word I'm trying to say? Reliable, or do they have good information?
None of those papers are reliable, Dom.
Because it was like, according to a recent report from The Express, they claim that ahead of the summer transfer window, Werner's agent has been busy offering his services to Juventus, AC Milan, and Atalanta, which is kind of crazy given the stature of player Timo Werner is. I mean, it's like understandable maybe AC Milan and Juventus, but like Atalanta signing a guy like Werner, like I know he's had a dip in form, but come on, that would
no shot. And it seems like Chelsea are happy to have him back for another season. I don't even think his agent is really angling for any type of move. If he did move, I think it would be back to the Bundesliga. He's not coming to Atalanta. I can say that with absolute certainty. Let's move to our last team in Italy. It's Sampdoria. who had a really tough season. We're close to relegation this year, kind of similar to Everton in a way, in that they've made some bad decisions. Older squad too. They actually have tied for the oldest squad, average age of 29, tied with Lazio in SerieA. And I think that was a factor in their poor season. You look at the names on the Sampdoria roster, and it's unfortunately names that you've seen a lot, and that's because they've had long careers and perhaps need to be phased out. But Sampdoria, in the past have been a team that have excelled and been great, and I'm talking very much in the past, but even in recent history, have been a team that's finished in the top half of the table, have had exciting finishes, have threatened for European spots. They were nowhere close to that this year, and part of that too is again just bad transfer decisions over the last few seasons, and not being able to get that top quality, still depending on some of these older players as like key integral parts of your team. Antonio Candreva is still like the guy for this team, and he had a pretty good season again. He's a guy that just ages well, but this is an important summer for them because you cannot be in the position that you were last year where you were close to relegation for Sampdoria. You need to make some smart decisions this summer. I think you need to really start thinking about what your next 2 or 3 seasons look like. And the fact that you just don't have tons of young players that are getting lots of minutes for you, and you don't really have time left, I think, to really start integrating them a little bit more. And I think this is the season that you have to be making just smarter decisions and bringing in the right personnel, the right players, because you need to start growing that kind of next core for this team to move forward, because you're not depending on Quagliarella, you're not depending on Candreva for much longer. Even someone like Berezinski, I think, is someone who's a bit older. You're not depending on Yoshida. I just think that this is a team that has to start thinking a little bit more forward now, and cannot afford to be in the position that they were, which was nearly relegated. And you look at their defense last season too; it was awful. I mean, just truly dreadful. But we're barely scoring goals either. This is just not an enjoyable team on really any level last season.
Yeah, to go off of that defense, the bolstering, there's rumors that they're in talks with Milan to sign a loan with option bid for Matteo Gabbia, which I think would be nice from the Milan fan perspective. He gets more playing time in a club where he most likely will start, and that would be nice. And you mentioned their struggles to score that could be getting a little more difficult with a lot of top clubs from both England and Italy eyeing up Damsgaard, who is a young talent in the league, is basically their guy. You saw his skills for Denmark on display in the Euros. I know that your club was interested in signing Damsgaard too, but now with the Darwin signing, do you think that's still possible? Is Liverpool still kind of in the hunt for Damsgaard?
Well, Damsgaard's more like almost like a fullback really than anything, and I don't see that. We just bought someone as well to be kind of the right back of the potential future, depending on what happens with Trent and where he ends up positionally. But I don't see that at all. Sampdoria have players like Damsgaard too, which is what's frustrating. I think that
sorry,
they have like these.
Go ahead.
No,
my bad. Go ahead. No, I'll talk about it afterwards. I'm just confused.
I think they have like young players that can step into those roles, and you look at like some of the young talent that they could potentially have. Like they have younger players here that can work for them. But they have not gotten the minutes in this past few seasons. I think part of that too is once you get in the relegation fight, you don't want to depend on these younger players. And you hope that Sampdoria again just start to integrate that younger talent that they do have. And again, I just think we've seen teams make these mistakes where they depend too often and for too long on 2 or 3 key players and don't start to think 2 or 3 seasons down the line, especially teams that maybe fall into that relegation zone. You get so caught up in just season to season surviving that you don't make the right future proofing types of plans.
Yeah, I was just very confused when you said Damsgaard's a fullback. He's an attacking midfielder
He
slash
plays
like winger. Like
he
he
plays like
plays.
he plays his best more in like the midfield as a wide player. I think. He would
Well,
not be
yeah.
playing
I
as
see him. I
a
see him.
midfield forward for like Liverpool.
No. I mean, that's what. Well, I asked because Darwin kind of can play on the left. I know that Mane just was sold to Bayern, so they're in need of like a left winger, which is where Damsgaard really plays.
Not in need of a
So
winger. Liverpool are fine in
that's
attacking.
that's 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 why I asked. I was like, does it make sense for Liverpool to even sign him? He'll be like signed and loaned out, like that's the only reason I asked. Is Liverpool still kind of in that hunt? I could see a couple other teams that could be in need of a player like Damsgaard, but I was just confused when you said fullback. I was like, this guy's more of like a winger kind of deal. But
He plays like in a 3-back system. He should be playing as someone's fullback in that system. Like
yeah,
I
of
don't think
course, in a
he's
3-back,
a
yeah.
dedicated winger. Like and when you've seen him for Denmark, that's where he's played and that's where he's had tons of success. Has not had the game time at Sampdoria. I think he operates best in that role. I don't think this is a guy that's a true like actual forward, in my opinion.
No.
That's just the way I see him. Yeah, so those are some of just teams that I think. And listen, every team, the transfer window is important. I don't want to make it seem like it's just those ones, but those ones specifically, I think I have my eye on this summer in terms of what they do and how they move forward. We'll get into some confirmed transfers in Italy. We already talked about Demiral to Atalanta. I like that signing. He had a good season for them. I like him being back. Giovanni Simeone is back to Hellas Verona permanently. Moved on from Cagliari, which is nice. It's good to see. Henrik Mkhitaryan apparently confirmed to Inter. Morata said in an interview that that's done. Also talked about Onana being wrapped up. So there's your competition for Handanovic for next year. In England, we were talking about Fabio Vieira to Arsenal. Mark Roca to Leeds. I like that signing a lot from Bayern Munich. Exciting midfielder. I think it's unfortunate. Bayern's a hard midfield to break into. This is no disrespect to not be a starting choice there, but I think he's a really talented midfielder. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. Yves Bissouma to Spurs from Brighton. Good deal for Spurs, like we mentioned. Naif Adjerd to West Ham. This is a name that I've heard a lot about over the last season. Had a really good year in France. You look at his stats, you look at the way he plays. I like this center back a lot. I think he's a great signing for West Ham. I like the way he plays. Great passer, great in the air. Kind of just your modern center back. 26 years old, so not the finished article just yet, but I think a player that can come in and make a huge difference. We know that West Ham really needed defensive help. I think he's going to be a good sign. This could be a guy that I think people want to pay attention to because I think he's quite talented, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. We'll get into the gossip section. Raheem Sterling to Chelsea. It seems like this is getting a little more advanced at this point, which is fascinating because Chelsea have lacked that clinical finisher. It's part of the reason they wanted Lukaku so bad. And now you get Raheem Sterling, who's a goal scorer for sure, but not a clinical one. He's more of a volume shooter. And we've seen that he can at times be a little wasteful in front of net. But would be interesting to see him with a change of scenery and stay within the Premier League. I would have liked to see him go abroad, but it doesn't seem like those pathways are there. So Sterling to Chelsea could be very, very interesting. And would obviously, too, I think, open up spaces for some of the Chelsea attackers to leave. Lukaku seems like he's out the door. Someone like Ziyech could be out the door. Even someone like Pulisic could be gone this summer. So Sterling would be, I'd say, a pretty big move within the league.
Yeah, I agree. That would be nice to see. It would be interesting to see how he gets on with another English squad. I was with you. I would have loved to see him go abroad somewhere else and try to play in another league. That would have been crazy to see him go out to Italy or Spain and sign with a club and do bits out there. But I think that Chelsea's a club that kind of fits him, especially with a lot of the movement and the attacking talent, like you said. He could just slot right in and kind of just pick up where he left off with with City.
Yeah, I think I would like to see that personally. But Jules Koundé also linked to Chelsea again, Sevilla defender. But there's rumors. Barcelona are an enigma to me because they simultaneously have absolutely zero money. They're 500 billion in debt all the time, and yet they're also buying Lewandowski, Koundé, Rafinha, Bernardo Silva this window, but also need to sell Frankie de Jong to make it happen. It makes no sense.
But it's not happening because Frankie
contradictory.
de Jong said he's staying, and it makes no sense, man. It makes no
Right.
sense. One day
So
Barcelona
we'll see
fans
what
are
happens with that.
complaining.
It does seem like Jules.
So
What are Barcelona fans complaining about?
they're complaining that they don't have money, and then the next day they're saying they're so rich, and it's just, there's never consistency. Never consistency. It's like one day it's high. It's like a really volatile stock market with Barcelona transfer rumors. So one day you're hitting the peak, next day you're hitting the valley, and you never know what you're going to have the next day.
Yeah, they're the hardest club to pin down in terms of their future because, like I said, it's just every day it's something a little different with them in terms of who's going there and how much money they have. We already talked about some of these guys, but we'll just highlight again. Tielemans, Rafinha, Richarlison have been linked to all pretty much the same kind of teams. I think each one of them really has been linked to Arsenal and Spurs in some way, and it seems a pretty good bet that at least two of those three get a move this summer. And I'm curious to see where they end up. Tielemans, I think, is a really interesting midfielder. Still very young too. I think just because he's been like an established player since he was like 16, that we forget that he's still he's only 25, so certainly still like a few more years to assume that he's in his prime. But he's a fantastic midfielder. I think where he ends up, that's a good signing. No matter, and he has a year on his deal, so it'd be a little cheaper than maybe it should. Rafinha, we've talked about. We did it in length about how much we like him, and Richarlison, I think too, is good. He's a good versatile front three attacker. Has good physicality. He's not like the best finisher, but I think again can work really well within a system. Kind of has an ego problem, but you know what? Fair enough. And I'm curious to see if he gets a move as well, where that ends up being, and what would be a good fit for him. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on those, but that's our gossip roundup. We're trying not to do too much of the. I always try and pick the ones that seem at least realistic, seem like it's actually might just happen. I don't want to be dumpster diving for the gossip roundup.
I mean, I was gonna not dumpster dive, but kind of speak on to a little bit, and in my final words about what's going on with Milan, but I don't know if we've reached that section or not yet.
Tell me your Milan thoughts, Tom. Let's have our Milan.
I don't know. I don't know if you've seen, but it seems like there's been some issues with between Redbird and extending the contracts of both Gazidis and Maldini. And there seems to be some confusion as to what their roles will be within the club now that the new ownership has taken hold, which I think has been delaying some potential transfers that they've had kind of lined up and have been kind of setting up with talks and everything and going on. And you're seeing teams like Inter making all these signings and they're selling players and they're doing all this stuff. And then Milan has kind of been just quiet for a little bit. And, the talks between Renato Sanchez have kind of stalled because of this. And now teams like PSG may be swooping in. Same thing with Sven Botman. Botman has seemed like it's been all but finished, for the last like 2 months, and it still has not gone through. And then there's rumors of like outgoing players, like Rafael Leao has been linked with everybody. The city looking to bring in wingers, and Leao has been one like heavily linked, especially now that the rumors of Sterling leaving have been coming up. The extension, that's something that's super important to me, at least as a Milan fan, is extending Rafael Leao's contract. Still haven't done that. That's something they have struggled with for a few seasons now, is to lock in some of your main guys. It happened with Donnarumma, but it ended up working out in Milan's favor with Magnan. Same thing with Çalhanoğlu. But Kessie, that's somebody who I think could have been re-signed but apparently did not fit into Milan's plans. I just don't want to see the same thing happen with Leao. The only thing that I would be okay with seeing him leave is if a huge sum of money came in and we could sign somebody else, big name, to go into that spot, but I doubt that happens. So, and I very, very doubt, a player swap deal plus cash for Leao with like Sterling plus some cash. So really the situation with Milan right now is making sure that everybody in the front office knows their roles so they can go out and finish what they need to do this summer. Because the longer they wait, the more time they're giving other teams to swoop in and just take all their players. Renato Sanchez is still one of the youngest, hottest talents that people want in Europe, and it seems like he wants to come to Milan, but the longer they wait, the easier it is for another team to just come in because he wants to play and get paid. So I'm a little annoyed. I want to see players come in. The only one that we know is for sure is Origi. And yeah, that's awesome. We got a number 9, but a right winger is needed. An attacking midfielder is needed. Center back and defensive midfield depth is needed. And they're, excuse me, but fucking around with I don't know what the roles of the front office are going to be. So, everybody's replaceable. You got these new owners and investors that don't know what Maldini means to the club, and they don't want to finish this up quick. If I was the owner of AC Milan and Maldini is my sporting director and he's been doing the right things, he got that club Theo Hernandez. Man flew to Ibiza to meet with Theo on vacation, got this man to the club, and now he's one of the best left backs in the world. Maldini is somebody that they need to make sure he's with the club and he's got the power to sign who he needs, because that's pulling power, right? Not only a team with the stature of Milan is coming for players, but you've got a guy, a legend of the game, one of the best center backs / left backs to play the game, is coming asking for you to play for their team. And what more could you ask for? That's history. That's tradition. And now that they're back in the Champions League, that's big pull. But if they don't know their role, they can't do anything to bring players in, and they better act fast or they're going to fall back into this mid 2010s kind of Milan role. And I would hate to see that, especially, the last few years. They just won the league. You can't fumble this bag.
I think you're being a little doom and gloom with them. They haven't been as ambitious in the market yet. But this has also been a team that has been really patient in the market in years past. And I think people questioned their transfer decisions last summer, and it worked out for them. I think people were rightly upset, and you can make the case that maybe some of those decisions shouldn't have been made, right? But it ultimately turned into a league title. It's hard to argue with what they've done so far. I think losing out on potentially someone like Renato Sanchez could be a mistake. I've been critical of some of their contract handling over the last few years, because you didn't have to lose Donnarumma for free. You didn't have to lose Kessie for free this summer. You're missing out on money by letting these guys just walk, right? Even if you're just getting 10 or 15 million, that at least helps.
Exactly.
Exactly. I don't think Milan are going to slip back into where they were 7-8 years ago. I think they still obviously have a good project going. I think they have a lot more talent than they did at that point too, especially young talent. They didn't have that whole left side like they have now with Leao, Theo Hernandez, like they have with Tonali now. I still think they're in a good spot, and I don't know that they're a team that I'm necessarily at this stage going into the season expecting them to, necessarily defend their title. But I would be surprised if this is not yet another Champions League season for them, where they're finishing on those top 4 spots. I would be really surprised at that. I think they can fight for the title again, but I think, again, we said it even in the run-up to the title this season that ultimately finishing in top 4 was Milan's goal coming into this year. I think everything was just kind of a bonus when you had the opportunity to win the title and the way they did it. But this project, I think, is still one that's not a finished article like someone like Inter is, right, where they're trying to continually just have that success on success.
Yeah.
Milan, still one of the youngest teams in SerieA, and are defending champions, which is rare. It's not something you see often. So, but they do need to make some signings soon. You're right.
The way that I see the Serie A season, the 22-23 season kind of going is that a lot of these teams are getting weaker. And the only two teams I see getting stronger right now are Inter and then potentially Juventus. So, a title defense could be feasible. It's just, hey, make some signings to do that. Because if not, yeah, we'll make Champions League. You'll be able to consistently build. Yeah, that may be a little slippery slope I was getting into, saying they'll dive back into what they were in the mid 2010s, but that's not like an instant thing. That's like something where if they continue to have these mishandlings of personnel and players and transfers and things like that in 3, 4, 5 years, you could see them dip back down into those depths where they're, not making European competition again. But the signings need to happen. They can't wait around. We can only wait to see. But I think that in a season where the league could be weaker, the games against teams like Inter and Juventus are going to be the ones that matter. And if your team is not improving, games against mid-table teams and low-table teams, relegation sides, become a little more difficult. You saw that happen this year. I don't want that to happen next year as a fan. I don't want that to happen. So I don't know. I'm becoming maybe a little restless, and I see a lot of the fan base becoming even more restless than I am. This kind of just started to kick in today and yesterday with some of the stuff that I was reading and seeing online. So it's a little annoying, but we move.
We move, exactly. That's enough from us tonight. We'll leave you with that. Leave you with that Milan rant at the end of the show. Hope you enjoyed our transfer roundup. Hope you liked our little chat about the teams that really need to do something this summer, really need to impress us, to wow us. And there's still plenty of time too, though, because we're not even at July yet. So all these free agent signings, all of that, not even official for another few weeks. So don't stress it too much. That's all I'll say. A lot of time left in the market. There's plenty more craziness to get to. But you know where to keep it locked and loaded. We'll be back talking. I won't be here next week, so we'll probably be seeing you in 2 weeks. So we'll have even more transfer news to talk. I'll be hitting up the big C bus in Ohio this weekend. I am Midwest Matt. Just kidding. Well, I am going to Columbus this week, but I would never be a Midwest Matt. I love the East Coast. I love the beach too much.
Midwest Matt.
Yeah, there's your thumbnail right there. But we'll be back. We'll be back to discuss any more permanent transfers, any more roundups. And believe it or not, we're gonna start previewing the season pretty soon here because, folks, I don't know if anyone has realized this yet, but we got the fixtures in. Season starts early this year because it's a World Cup season in the winter. And damn it, we should be talking about World Cup right now, but we aren't. Thanks a lot. But we'll be back next time, talking more transfers, talking to the people, telling you how it is. So we'll see you then. Keep it locked.